All right. Hopefully everyone can hear us. Can you hear me, Dario?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. Let me make sure that we are live, and then we should give a few minutes to people who are joining us, and then we'll get ready to go. Good. Yes. Okay. So it's live. It's being streamed properly. Already. Great. So this is how we're going to go about it. I know we have a few people who already joined us. So we're going to start in the next 2 minutes. I'm just going to send a reminder to everybody that has registered, and Boom, who's microphone as well, will join us in the next couple minutes.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience, Dario.
No problem.
All right. Let's see. All right, people are really starting to trickle in, which is great. Has Boom joined us? Here he is. All right. Welcome, Boom.
Hello.
Hi.
All right.
I'm just trying to see what people are seeing on. Okay, perfect. They can see all of our faces. We're great. All right. As you can see, we're all getting ready for the World Cup spirit here.
Cameroon for the win.
What'd you have, Boom? What jersey are you wrapping today?
I mean, you know what it is. Cameroon.
I'm going for Ghana because, unfortunately for Dario and myself this year, Italy is not going to the World Cup. So,
so go Ghana. Go
exactly.
Ghana.
So Ghana is who we're going for. Amazing. So, like I said, people are joining in, and I think we should be ready to start in the next minute or so.
Have we put the link on our LinkedIn?
Grab some water.
Yes, perfect. I'm going to drop it now on LinkedIn as well. Very interesting. Cool. I'm having a hard time here sharing this. Great. Just did. Amazing. So I guess this is a good time to start. And whoever joins us will be able to either rewatch it later or can also tune in the next couple of minutes. Welcome, everyone. Excited to have you all here. Join us for this webinar about the future of telecoms in Africa. I'm Anthony Miclet, the co-founder and chief product officer at DABA. And we have
Boom, CEO at DABA.
And then we have our very special speaker today, Dario, who I'm going to let introduce himself in the next couple minutes. So just to give you a little bit of context for those of you who are, it's the first time that you're joining us, and to give you a little bit more perspective about what we do at DABA. At DABA, our mission is very simple. We want to provide you with the best investment experience in the African capital markets. And today, as part of this investment experience, we want to cover a very exciting industry on the African continent that's been growing very fast over the past 2 decades and keeps growing. So the way this session is going work is very simple. It's going to be 30 to 45 minutes questions to Dario, and then we'll open it up the last 15 minutes for a question to our attendees. With no further ado, welcome everybody. And I would like to give the stage to Dario to give a quick introduction about himself. And Dario, if you can tell us where you're based as well, would be awesome. It might be obvious to some, but good reminder.
Sure. Yes. So, hi everybody. My name is Dario Bianchi. I'm based in Accra. I'm in Ghana. I'm in the office here in MTN. I'm the Chief Digital Officer of MTN in Ghana. I've been here now for almost 4 years. So I have to say I now know quite a bit about the telecom market in Africa and the potential, the challenges. So I'm very excited to really share some of these insights with you in the next hour.
Great. And perhaps, just to get us started, Dario, looking at your profile is you've been in telecoms for quite a bit of years now. What got you into the telecommunication industry? What was interesting to you?
So I'm actually a telecommunication engineer. I've never worked as an engineer, to be honest. I've always worked in product marketing, now digital. But I'm a telecommunication engineer. I've always been attracted about the potential of these of getting people to be connected to the internet, to talk to each other. And so then I started my career in Telecom Italia as a graduate, as part of the graduate program. And Telecom Italia is the largest operator in Italy. And then from there, I moved from one operator to the other, from one continent to the other, from Milan, then London, then 3 years in Jamaica, and now I'm here in Ghana.
Fantastic. What an exciting trajectory.
Yeah.
You've done definitely different continents. I mean, in the Caribbean, that part of the world. You've been in Africa, you've been in Europe, and today now in Ghana. So I think we are good to go. We're having a few people now starting to join us very actively. So to set the conversation, this conversation is going to touch on, we're going to start to get an overview about the telecom industry in general. Then we have some more specific questions about the telecom, the networks, how the industry will evolve in the future. And like I said, towards the end, we'll open it up for questions. So
sure.
I think a great starting point here for the conversation today, Dario, is for those who do not know much about the telecom industry in Africa, looking at what has happened over the past 20, 30, 40 years. Could you just tell us how things have evolved in the telecommunication industry in Africa?
So I have to say that Africa has in many things really leapfrogged Europe and the US when we talk about telecom. If you look at telecom in Europe, for example, it started with all these copper cables laid down. They were reaching your home, and then you have your fixed telephone and so on. All of this somehow happened also in here, but then the reality is that everything boomed with the mobile network, when basically everybody, wherever they were, could be connected to the internet. So forget about cables and all these things. You are connected. You have your phone, and you can talk to people. And then slowly, in the last 10, 15 years, this industry has really become a key part of everybody's life. There's people in Africa, they don't have one SIM card, they have more than one SIM card. The SIM card penetration in Ghana is above 100% because everybody has more than one SIM card. That's to tell you how penetrated it is. And then it got to a point where in many African countries, and Ghana for sure is one of them, telecom is the largest taxpayer. MTN here in Ghana, we are the largest taxpayer. We are the largest company in the country. That's how big this industry has become. And then over the years, of course, when countries and governments started pushing for digitization, the operator have become even more important as a key asset for the country to bring people to be connected to the internet. So it's huge. Is booming with some big numbers. I mean, over 500 million subscribers, of which somehow 50% are connected to have a smartphone. So there are still a large part of customers without a smartphone, and revenues where almost all the large operators in Africa. So of course MTN, but also Airtel, Orange, and also Vodacom, growing, either almost all of them, I would say double digit year on year. So it's a very interesting industry that is really growing fast.
And I'm just going to share here a little visual for those.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that is touched on some of these, and perhaps who touching. You've mentioned a few big names. You mentioned MTN, Orange, Vodacom. How are these spread across the continent? How is the market shared? Perhaps not just the market share exactly, but how are these? For example, looking at Eutelsat has been mostly focused on northwest of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
How are these spread? How are these shared on the continent, these telecom operators?
Yeah, I would say that Vodacom, Safaricom, so that group that are partially owned by of course by Vodafone, they are more in of course South Africa and then East Africa, so Kenya, Tanzania, and so on. Then we have of course Orange is very, very strong, especially in the francophone countries, so Ivory Coast and few others. And then we have MTN is present in West Africa heavily. Our largest countries are around almost 80% of our revenues, between 70-80% of our revenues come from Nigeria and South Africa. And then you have Airtel, who has a presence, as you can see, mainly in Central Africa, and is a very good competitor for MTN and also for Safaricom in Kenya.
And Boom, did you have a question on that? Oh, I can hear you. Interesting.
I was muted. No question on that so far.
Fantastic. So just as Dario touched here, we'll get to this in a little bit. As Dario mentioned, right now, at least this is a number from 2020. We had about 550 million mobile subscribers in Africa, and that number has been increasing by 60 million since 2018, which is pretty significant increase. I think what would be a good, an interesting part of the conversation, and I know the whole topic of this is the future of telecommunication, and we're going to get to that part, but it is important that people understand, the foundations, what the operators, how do we get to here? Because one thing also, Dario, that I think is important is Africa is very special when it comes to telecommunication, right? We're not just talking about talking on the phone, right? I think mobile money is a very important component to telecommunication company. And perhaps I think it would be important for those who do not have that context to know more about why is telecom business so important and so big in Africa specifically, because you've mentioned it, right? Different geographies have telecommunications company, but it's not as big as it is in Africa.
So maybe the
services,
being really specific on the different services that are offered by telcos in Africa that might be different from the typical service menu in other geographies.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very unique. So if you look at the US and Europe, basically an operator like Vodafone or an operator like, I don't know, Verizon, basically they offer, they sell devices, okay? Then they offer a mobile service that is voice and data, and then they offer a fixed service, used to be ADSL, now is fiber. And then on top, maybe sometimes they offer content. There have been some acquisitions, so they offer content or some other services. But then when you come to Africa, this is quite different because the fixed connectivity, like the fiber, is still in its infancy. Okay, it's growing now, but it's still very, very small. But it's a massive opportunity for the future. And then there is a service that is not present in Europe or in the US that is mobile money. That it's quite funny. When I arrived in Africa, I was like, I of course I'm in the industry, so I heard a lot about mobile money. But until you enter Africa, you enter Ghana, you don't understand how pervasive it is. In Ghana, I think you can't stay more than a week without a mobile money account because everybody have asked for they get paid with mobile money. If you want to send some money to somebody, you do it with mobile money. And how it works basically is like your mobile number becomes your your bank account. Okay, and then they give you for every mobile number there is a PIN that is normally 4 digits. That is your password, and with that you basically you go to any agent in the country. And I think here in Ghana we have now almost, I think, over 300,000 agents. These I call them, it's very difficult to explain to somebody who is in Africa what they are, but it's a sort of, maybe it's not the right way of telling them, of describing them. It's like a human ATM, okay? So it's somebody who sits in a village, in every single village, at least one, and is there, and you can go there to put money in your wallet, or you go there to take money from your wallet. So the typical example, this is an industry that started in, that Safaricom started in, is a product, sorry, that Safaricom started in 2007. And basically the concept is, I move from the village to the big city, I earn money, and I have to send money home, okay? Instead of having to pay somebody who gets on a matatu, trotro, or whatever it is, and goes back to the village, and of course you lose money during the process. You basically just send the money home. So you send the money using your phone, and then the money arrives to the person on the other side. The person goes to the agent, collects the money, and is done. So the power of this is all of this can be done by every single mobile customer in the country, because you don't need a smartphone. Now there are apps, but all of these is powered by USSD. That is the old technology for people who live in the US and Europe, maybe especially the youngest, you don't even remember, but basically is when you do *123# and you get your balance. This is a technology called USSD. It's a technology that I think it started in 1995. So it's a very old technology, but it is incredibly efficient, because with a 5, 10 euros, $10 device, you can basically have your wallet in your hands and you can manage your money. So it's an industry that started with person-to-person transfer and now has evolved in a proper fintech. So we used to call it financial services, mobile money, but now, of course, we call it fintech, because at the end of the day, it is a fintech. It is a fintech product that it's a great asset for the operator. I mean, we're talking about, for Safaricom, we're talking about 39% of their revenues in H1 this year came from M-Pesa, that is their mobile money service. Similar for us in MTN, we're talking about around 30% of the revenues. And these are very profitable revenues, because it's a very low capex service, and it's a fintech. So the multipliers and everything, all these things, they're very, very good compared to a standard capex intensive service. So it's an asset that it's a product that many of the big operators in the world would like to have, but of course they don't have these, because in Africa you have the situation where large majority of people are unbanked, so they don't have a bank account. So this is a huge potential for the operators. They found with innovation and technology, they tap into this big potential, and now it's just growing and growing and growing.
That was very insightful. Maybe outside of airtime and mobile money, are there any other maybe significant business lines or units that are worth mentioning for telcos across the continent?
So what's happening with telco in the last 10 years, and is still in the process, is basically that up until, 3-4 years ago, basically all the revenues were coming from voice, so people talking to each other, and mobile money. Then, of course, in the last 5-6 years, data has become big. Now almost, I think almost all the operators have a 4G service. So the data revenues start contributing more and more to the total revenues of the operator. We're talking about, in the case of MTN here in Ghana, we're talking about around 40%. In some more advanced countries, even more than 40%. Then another big new revenue stream that is growing is the B2B. So, there are a lot of SMEs and corporate and so on that are growing and becoming established. So they need connectivity, but beyond connectivity, they also need a lot of ICT services. So that means everything from cloud, from even Office 365, all these things that operator can offer bundled together with the connectivity. Then another big part of the revenue that again is growing is fixed connectivity. So I'm here in Accra, for example, in my home, I have a fiber that goes enter my house. I have on average 60, 80 megabit per second download speed. So it's a very good fiber service. And this is just starting now because, of course, we still need to roll fiber everywhere in the country, and this is growing also very, very, very fast. And then many of the operators are then also looking at, okay, what's next? What are going to be the other big newer areas of growth? One area is, again, similar to what's happening in the US and Europe, is content. So all these partnerships that are happening with the small content players in Africa, but also the big players. If you think about it, for people who lives in the US, normally you can get a contract with Verizon, and then you get a Disney Plus subscription or discounted or something like that. In Sub-Saharan Africa, except in South Africa, Disney Plus is not even live yet. Prime Video is not live yet. Netflix is largely not live yet. Not live means you cannot pay in local currency, and you cannot pay with the payment method that everybody uses, that is mobile money. So in the next 12, 18 months, these big players will enter the country, the continent, sorry, and this will be another big revenue stream for the operators. And then the most advanced operators like us, of course, we are thinking about things like API. So API is this software, let's say, yes, where you basically manage to get two servers or two softwares to talk to each other. And what if we, as an operator, we expose some of these APIs, because we have all this data from customers, we can expose these APIs, of course, following regulation, and then we can monetize this data. So this is a huge amount of potential revenues that is still untapped, and that will become a reality in the next few months. So it's just this, as long as there is innovation, there will be a lot of growth coming in the telecom business.
Yeah, you've just mentioned so many business lines, and they all seem very exciting. But maybe before moving to the next question we have here, you mentioned mobile money being a low capex. When you were talking about the capex, was it primarily setting up the agents? And if it is it under a franchisee model, or how are you acquiring and pretty much rolling out agents across the continent, across the country, in Ghana specifically, whereby you mentioned that you had about 300,000 agents in Ghana alone, if I recall correctly. So do you mind touching a little bit on that model?
Yeah, so being an agent is a job in Ghana. It's a full-time job, and you can, if you are in a good position and you're doing a good job, you basically can sustain a family or even more than a family. So it's a proper job. The way it works is that anybody can become an agent. There is a process where you subscribe. We do a KYC, so we check that you are who you are, and we do few checks. You have to pass again few checks, and then as long as you have some initial, I think one of the requirements that you need to have initial pot of cash, that is your initial float, let's say. Then at that point you are in business. It's very, very easy. Then at that point you have your own area, but you can also move. You can partner with other agents, and it's as I say, it's a business. I mean, it's a very, for me, when I arrived here in Ghana, it was all new, and I was really struggling to understand it. But then I realized how big it is. It's really a big thing, because people really need every single day to send money, to exchange money, and mobile money is way more efficient than any other medium, and cheaper, of course, very cheap. And the agents,
Thank you
basically, they get, sorry, the agents, the way, I think I didn't answer the question that is very important. How do they make money? Is basically they earn a commission. So for every single transaction that they are enabled, they earn a small commission. So the more they exchange, the more the commission, basically.
And there is no license to become an agent, right? You just need to be affiliated with MTN.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Very interesting. Now, we had a question about the most significant trends in the telecom market, but you touched on some of them with the upcoming business lines that are being developed, such as B2B services, direct connectivity, cloud services, and all these things. Maybe one thing to touch on would be just the adoption of pretty much these mobile services. We know that there's still affordability issues with data, maybe getting access to internet, and that sometimes leads to pretty much low penetration. What do you think would be the key drivers to continuing to grow, kind of like telcos businesses, the different business lines maybe, and keep on reaching more Africans on the continent?
Yeah, so for sure, one key area that we touched already, I'm not going to touch it again, is innovation. So only the operator that will be able to keep on innovating and finding new revenue streams will really be the ones that will grow. But the other key thing that you mentioned correctly is around affordability, and it's a very interesting topic, and also I think I would say is one of the biggest challenge that we have here in Africa, because we just say that around 50%, 40% of our customers in Ghana, in Africa, mobile users, they use mobile, but only from a feature phone. So they can only send text, make phone calls, and maybe play Snake, and that's it. They don't have a smartphone. But they don't have a smartphone not because they don't want to have a smartphone, but simply because they cannot afford. And not only they don't have a smartphone, not because they don't want it, not because there's no network, because the majority of the countries, we cover really, that's why we say MTN, our claim is everywhere you go, because we really cover almost every single village or area, okay? But the problem is the affordability of the device. This still remains a huge problem, because we haven't been able yet to get a device that is decent quality and that is at an affordable price. Affordable, talking about $10, $15, $20. That's the number we're talking about, and even less potentially. So here there are a lot of things that are happening. One is clearly using mobile money to reduce the price of these devices. So there's a lot of innovation in this space, a lot of new companies that are entering this space in collaboration with the operators, where basically you get a device, and then you can pay it through mobile money in 10, 6, whatever number of installments. That's a key thing, and this is really helping getting more adoption. But another thing that I'm very, very hopeful, and maybe I'm too hopeful, I don't know, but that Google committed to spend $1 billion in Africa in the next 5 years. They are setting up quite a large product development team in Nairobi, and this is a team that will not be tasked to, has happened to date, where they were tasked to simply, okay, I create a product in California, let's bring it to Africa and let's adapt it to Africa. What I hope is going to happen, and what at least they commit and what they said, is they're going to build products for Africa. So hopefully these will be also a key driver to reduce affordability, because of course Android is a key component of the devices, and there are a lot of innovation that they can do to reduce the cost of the device. And then of course another key part is also the capex of the operator. So we also have to, operators have to be have to have a return on that investment. So regulators can do a lot to help reducing the cost of data. And so, for example, things like a national fiber backbone, or there's a lot of things that they can do to really reduce the cost. And is happening. Majority of the regulators in sub-Saharan Africa and Africa, I would say, are very advanced, and they're really pushing for this type of things. So I believe the potential affordability is a problem, but slowly it's gonna become less and less of a problem, and the potential for growth for the operators is clearly huge.
Yeah, and you mentioned the cost of the device, and I mean, I think it oftentimes comes down to hardware. You mentioned maybe Google's effort. Are there any current efforts to manufacture powerful phones or powerful enough devices? Because my understanding is if the device is more powerful, more services of the telco get utilized, hence pretty much pushing the business forward and also pushing innovation and all these things. Are there any other initiatives right now, instead of helping people pay off the phones that are already at a higher price point, any specific initiatives that you're aware of to bring down the cost of the phone, like maybe cheaper, more powerful phones?
So there are few initiatives. I mean, the first one, of course, is that there are few brands, few Chinese brands that are focused only on Africa. So there are brands like Techno, Infinix, and so on, that they are part of the same family. These are brands that they were not even they're not present anywhere else than in Africa, and they managed to produce very decent quality devices at a low cost, although still not that low, but at a low cost, I would say. There are some other efforts in some countries. I believe Rwanda, they are trying to do where they build devices in the country. Okay, but again, it's not easy. Another big part is everything around import tax and all these things that can also play a key role in affordability. So there are a lot of things I would say that are happening. There's not yet one big. I don't think there is one silver bullet. Okay, I think it will be a combination of all these things that over time will reduce the cost of the devices.
That's a perfect segue. And Anthony, I'm just gonna ask maybe one or two more questions, and we can go to the audience's questions, because that was a perfect segue into the question of regulation. You did mention a few things around the government's role, having government sponsored or national fiber. That's something that the government can help with. Favorable tax incentives for the telcos, but you just mentioned now maybe reducing the import tax on these devices that get imported into Africa. I guess the question is, and you've already touched on it, but how important do you think is is regulation in the telco sector moving forward, and what are the things that you'd like to see maybe from a regulatory standpoint to accelerate the growth of the telecommunications sector?
Yeah, regulation plays a key role. If there are few, if you think about what's happened in the last few years, okay, there's a lot of the regulators help getting new operators into the different countries. So you don't have just one incumbent. You have a proper competition. I think Ethiopia was the last one, but now Safaricom managed to enter that market. So for sure, the regulators have done an amazing job to really open up, and also with mobile money, different regulators really were more open or less open to this. But the regulators that were very open, such as Ghana and Kenya and so on, they managed to create this new industry that is mobile money, and they managed to also create how can I say to really get unbanked people to really be able to start having a proper managing their finances. So that's for sure the regulators can play a key role. They also play a key role in making sure that there is a balanced market pricing and all these type of things. I guess what they can do more is really to try to understand and work with the operators to see, okay, what more can we do as an industry, to make sure that the whole industry can grow and can contribute to the growth and digitization of the different countries. It's a difficult topic, again, because the operators are in many cases the largest taxpayer in the country. So it's not always easy, especially now during these macroeconomic crisis. But I have to say that the regulator in Ghana and in many of the other opcos, in any of the other countries, are very advanced and open to this type of discussion. So I believe the future looks bright, very bright.
Okay, that's good to know. I just want to touch on one trend, which is 5G. It appears that its deployment is still behind schedule across the African continent. There are several launches of pilots here and there. What's your take on the adoption of 5G? Should operators focus maybe on monetizing 4G first and deploying that? What's your take around the topic of 5G, and when can we expect it, if anytime soon?
I think 5G is a reality, I have to say. So it's getting live in Nigeria, it's getting live in Kenya, it's live in South Africa. Of course, live doesn't mean 99% population coverage, but is a reality in many of these countries. It's going maybe a bit slower than in Europe or in the US, but it is a reality. Some regulators have, different regulators have taken different, approaches, but it is a reality. And I believe I don't think it's too far away, because the need for 5G is big, but it's not the need for 5G because I want to be able to have a faster mobile phone, but because 5G is a way to providing fixed broadband without having to lay cables to your home. So that, I think, is the massive potential for 5G, and I believe these will also be a key thing that will push operators and regulators to really go even a bit faster in the next few months and few years, because all the countries in Africa, especially after COVID, they need fast internet connection at home. We have to move away. We are trying to evolve from I give you internet on your phone and it's fine because you can use WhatsApp and watch videos on YouTube and so on, to no, I give you internet in your home, in your office, in your small office, if you are just a small startup, so that you can build a business. But to do that, you need a good, reliable, cheap connectivity. And these can only be provided by, in some cases, only by 5G, and of course also fiber.
Gotcha. So before I give the floor to Anthony for the Q&A, it wouldn't be a Daba webinar if there wasn't at least one investor-focused question. So you've given us a lot of positive around, the telecom industry. The future looks very appealing, very bright. But as an investor looking to invest in telcos that are maybe private or public, what are the things that you would say, investors need to understand, both on the positive but also on the risk side, when evaluating the telco business today and in the future?
So on the positive, I have to say that it's the potential is still big. There's still a lot of people that don't have a phone, that are not connected at all. There are still a lot of people who are connected, but they are not using data, and so on and so on and so on. The same with mobile money. Yes, maybe there are some new fintech that are entering the continent, like Wave or others, but it's not easy to replicate an agent, a number like 300,000 agent in a country. You don't do this from one day to the other. So the potential for data, for mobile money, and still for voice, if you think about it, is still very, very big. In terms of course, the key potential issues is that telecom is still a very capex intensive business. So if you want to provide a good data service and you want to be a leader in your market, you still need to invest your few million dollars every single year just to keep up, because the growth of data it's huge. I mean, we see it here in MTN. Every year we do the budget and we we say, okay, we think that the growth of data usage will be this, and every single year we are wrong because it's always higher. So it's huge, and so every time the more the data grows, the more you have to invest capex to make sure that your infrastructure can cope with that huge amount of traffic. So it's important that it's a capex intensive. Without capex, you don't invest. If you don't invest, slowly the quality of your service will decrease, and at that point, your customers will move to another operators who is actually investing. The other big theme is also what is the evolution of the telecom business. Data is the new big thing, but also it does like that. So data is a big thing, but then we get to a point where, okay, what is next? So people who are in the telecom business, they talk a lot about becoming a platform, or operators having to moving from a telco to a techco, so becoming a proper technology company, not just providing connectivity. But of course, not all the operators are ready to do that. Not all the operators have the skills, have the people, have the vision, have that to do that. So only those that have this vision and they think that the future is way beyond data, is way beyond what we're doing now. These are the ones that will really grow, because at the end of the day, the main nightmare for any operator is to become what they say a dumb pipe, so that basically you lose completely the value. So the key thing is what can you do? How can you increase your product lines? How can you penetrate more your customers with more products, so that you don't just provide a connectivity pipe and that's it. So the future is bright, but at the same time, it's only for those who are ready to innovate and that have the skills and the capabilities to innovate.
Thank you very much, Dario. And on that note, I'll pass it back to Anthony for some questions from the audience.
All right. So there's been a question that has been going on for quite a bit of time from Stanley. And this is not the whole question. It's cut into pieces. But the question for you, Dario, is there is a lack of internet infrastructure. The lack of internet infrastructure is a real impediment for the Ghanaian economy to grow. And hiring remote workers in Ghana is now too expensive due to the delay in work completion rate due to slow internet services. So the question is, what are the main obstacles you're facing in deploying fiber optic throughout the country?
So fiber, so in order to provide connectivity, so basically the way the telecom infrastructure works, give me like 2 seconds to give a bit of a technical answer. Of course you have your base station, your big radio, your big antenna, but that one, to provide a good service, you need to connect that antenna with a fiber to your server node and everything. So you need to roll out as much fiber as possible throughout the country to provide good connectivity, good mobile connectivity. Okay, but doing that, it's expensive, and it's also you need to do it in the most efficient way to avoid just wasting money. So that's where things can get better if depending on how you do it with other operators, whether you do it together, whether you do it by yourself, what is the position of the regulator, and so on. But the key thing is that it's expensive. The other problem that we have in Ghana, but I believe is also in some other countries, is also that the moment you lay the fiber on the ground, what can happen is that the fiber gets cut. Because all these countries are big developing economies, we build new roads and new buildings every day in Ghana. Every time there is a construction site, often happen that the fiber get cut, and that provides issues with connectivity. And this provides another investment for the operator that has to go there and repair the fiber. So it's easy to say lay fiber. Then from saying lay fiber to actually do it and do it successfully and do it in the most efficient way, it is not easy, and it's not for everybody. You need to be ready to put those capex. I mean, only in Ghana we invest every year between $100 and $200 million in capex, and majority of that goes into connectivity, fiber, radio, and so on. It's a huge amount of money, and it has to be done in the right way to make sure that, again, you do it in the efficient way and you get the return that you are expecting. At the same time, of course, we also are pushing and we are providing connectivity in rural areas, even in areas that are not profitable. But of course, because it's our duty to be, everywhere you go and to make sure that every single village is connected. But again, also this requires like good investment. Of course, there are new technologies now with the, with the solar panel and so on. But again, it takes quite a big chunk of our capex. And then once you have laid down your new radio, your fiber, then you have all the OpEx to maintain the site, backup generators, because of course, the grid is not always stable, and all these things that make our cost base, I would say.
Amazing. I hope, Stanley, that answers your question. If you have a follow-up question, feel free to drop it in the chat. Let me just remove this from here. I think, Boom, you're muted.
Sorry, Boom, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I was gonna say, like, I like how Dario kind of like mentioned the slogan, everywhere you go, and it's a perfect example of like the mission pretty much driving the business, right? So that was a nice touch.
No, absolutely. We really, it's really our objective, our mission. Absolutely.
I wonder, actually, and this might be very specific to Ghana right now, being MTN globally, being a multinational operating in several different countries, how does the currency situation in Ghana like impact the business globally?
So the currency situation, it's quite critical right now. So we have been working on the budget for next year for the last few months, and it's very difficult because you don't know what is going to happen next year. So will the currency stabilize? So the Ghana cedis is the worst performing currency against the dollar this year, so in the world. So of course, if you think about it, our capex, of course, we are a Ghanaian company, so our capex is in local currency. But a big chunk of that capex we pay in dollars, because we pay to Ericsson, to Huawei, and so on. So it plays a very important role. But then at the same time, what happens is also that also inflation is playing a key role. Inflation in Ghana in October was 40.7%, something like that. So 40% increase in a year. It's huge when you think about electricity, when you think about rent, when you think about all these things. So yes, it is playing a very, very big role. And of course, it also has a cascading effect on the global MTN, because of course we are part of a group. It's we are a key player. We are the third largest operating company for MTN. So the macroeconomic situation is really quite hitting us. But I mean, we are trying to do our best. We are really pushing hard to still grow and still provide a good service. But for sure, especially next year, we are already thinking about, we're gonna have to do some sacrifices, of course, because the world is different from what it was this year or even last year.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Anthony, back to you.
So I do not see any current questions right now. I don't see any questions in the chat. So I think this would be a perfect time for us to wrap it up and thank Dario for this really insightful conversation about the telecommunication business in Africa. I'm seeing one comment.
Yeah, I see the question. That's a tricky one. Yes.
Stanley.
I would have to pass this question to my CTO, to my Chief Technology Officer. It's a tricky one. No, but to be honest, it's really, we have a huge amount of, so that I think there are a couple of things. One is, of course, we have a lot of data, that so we know where the growth is coming. And so that's where, we see where you see data growing, where you see congestion, that's where then we start laying fiber. Then, of course, there are some strategic projects where it's not, you don't do it because you see traffic, but you do it because it's strategic, such as the main motorways or the main roads, because you want to make sure that people can still be on a phone or be on a data connection throughout their trip. So these are the criteria, but largely it's really based on the huge amount of data we see in terms of usage and where the growth is coming.
So thank you, Dario. And I just want to read you what Stanley's saying here. Other than the question, he's asking in what ways could we partner to accelerate the deployment of fiber optic internet in a specific development site? And he's saying that he's seriously interested. So
it's an area that we are looking at. So Stanley, please reach out to me. No problem. I can make sure you can talk to the right person.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
An exciting one. Dario, thank you so much for joining us today, for taking some of your precious time to tell us more about the telecommunication industry in Africa. We appreciate it. We appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure.
And just go ahead, Boom. You want to say something?
No, I was just going to say thank you as well. Go ahead, Anthony. Yeah.
Fantastic. And to all of you who have been attended this session, you will receive a report that has been drafted by the DABA's intelligence team to just kind of cover the different bullet points that we've covered, different industry, the numbers, and how this industry is going to grow over the next couple of years. So stay tuned for that, and you will receive that shorter toward the end of the day in your inbox. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you, Dario. Wishing everyone a happy Wednesday.
Thank you. This was a very insightful session. Thank you for your time.
The rest of the week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.